Welcome to Children of the Light. This is Stephen Poplin, your astrologer at large. Well, how did I get here? I've had my own sojourns. A big sojourn when going to many different lands, and first of all taking off to California to find out just how hip things can be. And then I didn't find it so hip, so then I moved over to Washington, D.C. to find out, how was the power being played, and that turned me off. And so then I went, I just kept on going. I was off in Europe for many years and doing a lot of these past life regressions that Sharon was talking about, as well as the life between life sessions, which I picked up from Michael Newton. You may have heard about him with his two bestsellers, Journey of Souls, Destiny of Souls. Very interesting things. And so I've been expanding that from my past life regression work for quite a few years. And many of those things, including my inspiration initially from Edgar Cayce, will be found also in my two books, Inner Journeys, Cosmic Sojourns, Volume 1 and 2, which I wrote when I was bored. When I was inspired in Iowa. So I've had a slight change in how things are unfolding here today. I was going to be playing everything from my laptop, including the music, but we did a sound check yesterday. It didn't work. I'm really angry at that thing, but I've got a DJ imported, Lloyd Kramer. Thank you, Lloyd. So we're going to be talking about lots of different things connected with eras, phases of times, and how we might fit into some of these different things. Hopefully you brought your individual charts, but beyond that, sometimes just knowing the year that you're born, maybe even the month, and especially with friends that you know, family members and so forth, I'm going to give a large overview of things from the First World War and before, and those different phases that we find ourselves in these individual groups, niches, our classmates, those special times that we had shared, as well as some of the nice music that we all experienced that bonded us many times during those times in the past. Can you hear me all right? Front? Great. Okay. So my bottom line takeaway from all of this is that there are special children of the light who have been making some very important contributions in our various societies. But we are all, each of us, children of light. And it's just a matter of finding out what are your particular dreams, your skills, your talent set, and then how you can best use them. So I'll be taking a look again at this bigger picture. Bottom line is that if we're taking a look at these phases and these eras, we're going to find a difference if you're born in Chile, China, Cuba, Chicago. And each of them will have also their own groups, their own classmates, their own particular music connected to their particular culture. And obviously, I'm a Western guy. I think many of you are too, gals. And so I'm taking a Western approach to this whole thing. Mr. DJ, number one. I'm also a long-distance DJ in this genre too. This is your time. And that was brought to you by Elton Hercules John, Sir Elton John, and Aries, born 1947. He's of a particular generation that some of you may also be involved with. So, in a kind of a general history of social groups, people looking at things in classically more of a popular Western perspective, there are these basic, generations.
starting off with the lost generation here. And when I talk about these different groups, and you're going to see these patterns too as we go along with a couple of different examples, but also your own examples, when you are born, the particular year that you are born, that has its own particular energy, an astrological energy, and that's going to be in your natal chart. And then we grow up, and in our teenage years, into our 20s, into our 30s, we take our individual energy, and then we're going to ride the crest of this different energy, of a new possibility. And young Elton John, he was riding the crest of the 1960s energy, and then in the 70s he really took off. So these classic groupings, I must admit, as an astrologer, I don't necessarily believe in, because I look at things, of course, with a different eye. But in a general sense, it gives us, some ideas, and you, I'm sure, have come across these different groupings. The lost generation, those people who were born around 1900, late 1890s, early 1900s, take a look at that. You were born during that time. I mean, by the time you're a teenager, you got World War I. Then you're moving towards the Great Depression. Okay, there's some dancing in the 20s. Okay. But then after the Great Depression, then we have World War II. I mean, millions died, lots of suffering. There's going to be, of course, some bright spots and some other things that I'm going to point out as we go along. But the reason why they were called the lost generation is that how did they have a chance? We're talking about grandparents, probably. I know that from my own mother, who was, she's going to be 91. She's an Aries. And she was born in 29. And I told her, very likely, it wasn't her fault, about the Depression. But she did tell me about some stories, and how poor they were. But how they also bonded together. And it was a special time when they played music together. Many people played musical instruments, and they entertained themselves. And her family, her grandparents were there, and that is a time that's gone. So I can't really call them the lost generation, but it was, especially geographically, where you were born, very unfortunate. The greatest generation then came from here, even though they too were born during the war times, First World War, and in the 20s, but they had to, confront the Second World War and everything that represents, including going on into probably the Korean War. Again, very tumultuous times. And one of the things that people forget about the end of the First World War, 16 million people died in that. And then in 1918, after the war, what happened? The great influenza, the Spanish flu. That's right. 50 million plus people died. I mean, what a time. So the greatest generation then came, and they were the heroes of World War II. And then they had kids, which were the baby boomers. But in between them, we had what's called the silent generation. And again, very similar to the lost generation, it was like, born, during the Depression, around the Depression, we had the Prohibition, and then when they were really young, or even as teenagers, it's World War II. And there was also a sense at that point with the McCarthyism and with other, we've got the Bolsheviks that started in 1917. We have to watch out for those commies, the socialists. There was a lot of pressure on some of these people to be quiet. Don't voice what you really think. And that's one of the reasons why they're called the silent generation. I know some of these people, and they're not very silent.
No.
And then, of course, we have the baby boomers. And this was after World War II, and they were coming home, and it was time to party, it was time to play, it was time to, get on with things, even though there was the Cold War, even though the world was at this place, confronting each other, and there would have been indeed some dangerous times there too. The Millennials, Generation X came out there. Again, I don't really agree with this particular date that is given to them, and even some of these social commentators, they're kind of easy with these dates too. Personally, I think the baby boomers go on into the 60s. Yeah, and so Generation X is more like the 70s into the 80s, maybe mid 80s. But they're the ones that things were more peaceful, and they had sometimes suburban homes, and both parents may have worked, so there's more time to go out and play and do their different things, playing Dungeons and Dragons and things like that, imagination time. Later on, of course, then they would have gotten into the technology world, which we find ourselves, but not like the Millennials. They say again here the 80s, 90s, but I'd say late 80s into all of the 90s, the Millennials. And a subgroup that I'll talk about between, in this particular area, the Indigo children in the mid-90s. But the Millennials, of course, they're talking about them as a power group in our times of voting. Usually they're liberal, they're usually hip, they've seen a lot. They grew up with this technology. They were, as kids, they were playing with all kinds of techno toys. And so they're pretty quick, and they get into computers. But at the same time, they might have had things given to them too easily, and so there's a bit of a tension sometimes between the Millennials and the baby boomers. And the Millennials saying, "You guys messed it up," and the baby boomers down to the Millennials, "Make your bed." Then after that, here more towards the late 1990s into the 2000s, the Generation Z. Unfortunately, I find this again not a great grouping, because after Z, what are we going to have? Start over with A again, or ZA, or Z.2? Yeah. So again, I will be looking at these groupings here from my astrological perspective, and finding out where do we fit in. The really great thing about all of this, of course, is in the cosmic cycles of things, there is the mystery, there is the greater plan, and we as souls, and this is where I put on my other hat as a past life regressionist, as a life between life integration specialist, that communicating with the souls of so many people from so many different generations, there is a plan. And it's a fabulous plan. And sometimes we're brought in or jumped in like with parachutes into the war zone, but we have a mission.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So let me start off with a perspective. I'm sure many of you either know something about your charts, or you've had like an astrological chart done for yourself. As I said, this here is a chart, and it could be like any chart, but this is a chart for today, right now, and starting here at 2:30 today. And I have here next to it an under picture of Jupiter, which is a lovely Jupiter mandala.
Ooh.
Isn't that great? Yeah. So this is, I think, the South Pole, and looking at it from that direction, how fabulous is that? But a combination, symbolically as well as an analogy, is that here we have a greater disk, and we have this is now for another generation, the 45 disc, the 33 and a half, 33 and a third, the 78, the 45. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Those are records. Yeah, records and how fast
The revolution of records, really. And so I periodically take a look at something like this lovely Jupiter mandala and say, oh, wow, here it is moving. And I look at charts, and I'll show you in another example of this, the music of the spheres, that it moves along from month to month, from year to year, and it's making this symphony. And sometimes there's a crescendo, and sometimes it's nice and light and moving. And with this particular Jupiter mandala and the Children of the Light program that we have today, in any horoscope, the circle here is, of course, our great circle around us here. This line across the middle is the horizon line. That's right here, and we cannot see below that, so it's all Earth to us. This up here is the sky, and this isn't any chart that we can see. And so over here on the left would be things rising. That's why it's called the rising sign, your ascendant, and that would be over in the east. So if the sun were right here, actually the sun is over here, the circle with the dot in the middle. Is this, by the way, clear enough? Can you see this okay? Yeah. Circle with the dot in the middle, that's the sun. And if the sun were right there, it would be sunrise. And if it were up here with that arrow pointing up, it would be middle of the day, it'd be around noon. Over here, it would be sunset. Down here, it would be midnight. And that's true in any chart, okay? And so something very interesting that we see not only for this and our times right now is that here is the Saturn-Pluto alignment. Here it is 23 and 24 degrees Capricorn. This is very rare. And you have the sheets that I gave you talking about the Saturn-Pluto alignment. Very soon, I'm going to be going to these specific phases, taking a look at these different generations and looking at in our, about 110 years ago, 105 years ago, we had a particular Saturn-Pluto conjunction in the sign of Cancer. Cancer, like Capricorn, is a parental sign, and people back then were being very nationalistic about their people, their land, their property, and what happened in 1914.
Archduke Ferdinand got killed.
Yes, he did. Someone did not like him. Yeah. And then, of course, it started World War I, which was the Great War, the war to end all wars. Little did they know. Yeah. And so here we have it again, and it's in now the opposite sign. It's in Capricorn, and now going more towards the emotional reactions to things, as in that other conjunction in Cancer. Now it's more focused upon the government, because that's Capricorn. Large institutions of control, authority, order, government, as well as that combination here. Saturn is the taskmaster. It likes to have things figured out. It's really time conscious, and it is definitely, father knows best. It's right next to Pluto, and we'll be talking about Pluto a lot today. And that is the god of the underworld. And it is oftentimes subversive. It may not want to play by the rules. There are going to be some secrets. There may be some scandals. There's going to be a cover-up. And they're both playing coincidentally in the sky right now at this time. And this month of January 2020, it is exact. But it was playing out all of 2019, all of 2020. We're going to see that these two are coming together with a reprieve, yay reprieves, of this Jupiter, also in Capricorn right now, but it's going to also go through the same places here that these two have made a mess. And so Jupiter is there to raise the energy, to give more of a positive slant on things, to find some optimism, to bring back hope. And then it's going to align with Saturn here in the next sign of Aquarius, and that'll be the end of this year, 2020.
Oh.
Yeah, so We'll get more into other aspects of that, but this, I want to give an overview orientation of charts, and you have your own charts there that I'm sure you're playing with and have already memorized. So now I start with this really great image here, and I've been playing with this one here for a while, and I enjoy this because it's a lovely analogy of time, playing with time, and this here, here was imagine, a child just throwing a little pebble or something right here, but we have a drop of water going into a nice smooth lake or pond, and then of course we have the concentric circles around there. So imagine now that we're going to like bisect this in half, okay? And these larger troughs, and there will be others, waves and others, but these really big ones on either side, this here is a discovery of a planet. This would be, in this analogy, I'll start off with the planet Uranus, which was discovered in 1781. And then, imagine right here, 1781, and so in the time frame, this is in the recent past, this is the near future, and so just before this planet was discovered, and just after the planet was discovered, we have got some major events in the world that's going to tell us something about the planet. 1781, what was happening? It was the midpoint between the American Revolution and the French Revolution. It was the center point of the Industrial Revolution. From my perspective, having looked at this and comparing it with what are called the precession of the equinox, and you've heard about that, the age of Pisces, the age of Aquarius. Since Uranus is the ruler of the sign of Aquarius, my humble opinion is that the Aquarian Age began when this planet was discovered. Boom, it came in, and so many things were happening. Some of the things, interestingly enough, all during the age of enlightenment. Again, think about these words as understandings about the planet, and then the sign Aquarius, and the age Aquarius. Okay, so gentlemen scientists were getting together, and they were having these salons, very similar to what we have right here today, and they were doing their experiments, and they were comparing notes, and they were reading books, and they were applying the things that they do with this new thing called electricity, and how to work with that, and mesmerism. Mesmer was doing his thing at this time too, and the Masons, and what they famously having measurements to figure things out, to the point where we're saying we're bringing in individuality, and remember now some of the clarion calls of those revolutions, the rights of man, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, law and order, and new things, and independence for people, freedom and independence, because they were also fighting the powers that be of their time, the church, the monarchies, the empires, and so forth. They were breaking away from all of that. It was a very exciting time. And Mr. DJ, I think we had also a particular composer at that time, which is really quite perfect.
The year again?
This was 1781. But basically, the 1760s, 1770s, 1790s, that whole period with, again, this trough here. American Revolution, French Revolution, but the waves are continuing. And Mr. Mozart, he has his Venus at 29 degrees Aquarius. So the precession goes backwards from Pisces to Aquarius to Capricorn and so forth. So as it goes back in time, and it takes 2,160 years for these great ages, so So during this time when I believe that we start the Aquarian Age, you can bring it. We have this Aquarian Age here in which that energy of 30 degrees Aquarius, because it's going backwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 30 degrees, 29, 28. So at this time in 1781, it hits 30 degrees, and this is where Mozart has his Venus of art, of beauty, of music, of compositions, and of course another great genius.
Stephen, you lost me a little bit in saying the precession. So when we look at that line in the horizon and the ascendants all the way over on the left, does that mean the things that are underneath are coming up to go into the light?
Mm-hmm. There are two points I'm making. And this is the discovery of the planet and an analogy of the events that describe characteristics about that planet. The precession is a very slow-moving thing, 25,000 years, 2,160 years each sign, and that is more like a...
So it's not connected to the zodiac. I mean, it's such a big thing that we're going to be in that such a long time. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, but it's good when you, certainly when you play with this, and obviously, and it's the same thing with watching the news. They only show the excitement of the news and sometimes the bad news. But all of the nice things and the good things and the interesting things and the lovely things, yeah, that could be seen in the trough, you know, that we don't see, but it is happening, and it was affected by this. Yeah.
Cool, so when the planet gets demoted, what happens? Everything goes backwards.
Astrologers ignore those people.
Okay.
Yes.
Dovetailing, I think, a little bit on what David was asking. In my chart, most of my planets are below the horizon. And I've noticed in my life that major events take place personally inside me and around me in the personal realm rather than publicly. And so above us, it seems like everything that's above you has a good chance of taking place publicly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yep, that's very true.
Okay.
Yeah. And sometimes someone with a lot of planets above, they may be very interested in society and going to this place and that place, and then not really, you know, finding themselves. Interestingly enough, with you, I mean, you work with the body and the muscles, you know, and so you're really into the earth energy. Yeah.
But also, I think you just actually explained it. To go from 29 to 30, or however you said it, it's actually about 70 years. Within, at 1 degree, is about 70 years.
72.
Okay.
Yeah. Nice and slow and steady.
Oh,
Yeah, going backwards, and so over that period of time, 72 years, you know, 1 degree, and we're just seeing the precession slowly going back, you know. So we're definitely, as far as I'm concerned, we are in the age of Aquarius. And do you know about the decanates? Every sign has 3 decanates, 3 parts. You know, a decam meaning 10, and so every sign is divided into also 3 other lesser portions. It's kind of like a co-ruler or a sub-ruler, and it's connected with the other signs in its own element. Of course, and Aquarius is air sign, so and that 30 degrees, the first 10 degrees is its own sign, and that's true with its own sign. So in the example of Aquarius, it's Aquarius. The second one would be the following air sign after Aquarius, which would be Gemini. And then the third...
10 degrees to 20 degrees.
Exactly, right. And then from 20 to 30, the third decanate, that would be the third air sign, and that would be Libra, which is very interesting because we are in the Libra decanate of the Aquarian Age. And that, I think that says a lot. It's good news for women in general, and but it is... Venus is also the scales, and so we have more laws. Remember the Bill of Rights, remember the things of the revolutionary periods, and but more legal matters, more rules to follow, perhaps too many lawyers. Too many. I mean, we've got a court case going on right now, or it seems to be a court case. It resembles one. But this is the other side of that energy, and that is the subgroup of Libra. The whole thing is Aquarian Age with 720 years
Right.
in this Libra stage, in this great period.
So the Libra is 720, that's a third of 25,000.
That's right, of the 2,160. Yep.
Yeah, so Uranus, it is really a very interesting and sometimes a contrary planet. And you might think here with this picture of planet Uranus on the right-hand side that I turned it over on its side. No, that's what it's doing. It is just has its axis, in that off-kilter sort of way, contrary to all the rest of the planets that are rotating in a particular way, Uranus will do it differently. Thank you. So anybody with a strong Uranian planetary influence is going to be, finding the contrast, that which is different, that maybe is distinctive to you and versus other people, with an interesting habit of finding also other smaller groups of people that are also different and unique, and they will join them in their clubs and groups and things like that. Here's a guilty Aquarian over there. And then of course I love the eye of God. It's, I think, if we look into the sky and we say, is there a God? It's, well, we're being watched. And this is in the constellation Aquarius.
The eye is only connected to Aquarius.
It isn't, yeah, it's that nebula in Aquarius. Yeah. And of course, the planet Uranus, there's several ways to pronounce this planet. And and you just can't sense it in. It'll break out and it's going to do its own thing. One of the very interesting things at the beginning of the Aquarian Age, and this was in 1782, and so they were working on it in 1781 when the planet was actually discovered, was the first air balloon. Humans took to the air in an air sign, in a fixed air sign. Yeah, I think that could be also a sign of Aquarius instead of the water bearer, but all these images came before Stephen came around. I have also the butterfly nebula over there just on the side, just because I like it.
What is that one?
That's the butterfly nebula.
Is that in Aquarius also?
It's not in Aquarius, no. It was a, I believe it was a supernova that exploded. And it's, again, symbolic of two ages coming together, the end of the Pisces age and the beginning of the Aquarian age. And there's going to be some overlaps. You can't say, oh, the Aquarian age, I think it was a Tuesday. No, it's more of a phase, more, maybe like a generation, from shifting from one into the other. But if we really compare and look back into the 1600s, the 1700s, and then from what has happened just since Uranus was discovered, by mathematical means, by the way, they had calculated it. And it's the first planet in thousands of years that had been discovered. And so, it's through, again, mind, reason, mathematics, plotting things out, calculations and so forth. Again, very Uranian. And so look at all of the toys and gadgets that we have right now today, that has been slowly developing since, of course, the Industrial Revolution. Even looking at, like, here we have the music back here, we have the lights over here, we've got a video recorder over here. It's like amazing toys that we have. We have it so much better than people did hundreds of years ago.
You can play the next one, but a bit, lower, but play it in the background. Back to Mozart. And I wanted to make a point while we have, again, this Aquarian energy, because he was born in the Pisces age. And composing as a young genius boy, into the 1760s, 1770s, and then when and so he was at that point in between. And so if you take a look again at this butterfly nebula, going from the Pisces age into the Aquarian age, he, amongst many, millions of people were experiencing that. But some other things connected with what we were leaving with the Pisces age. And think of Pisces also as the two fish. Any Pisces here? Are you both here?
No, just one of us.
Maybe the evil one is not here.
I'm here in one of my two lives.
Oh, okay. Here we go. So some of the things about the polarity of the Pisces age that we were leaving before this Uranian discovery, before we get into Aquarius. We had, of course, the two fish in that we had many different empires. The Roman Empire split into two during that Pisces age, the Eastern and the Western Roman Empire. Then we had the Catholic Church, that then was the Holy Roman Empire, that then was also split into two, with having the Protestants and the Catholics. Okay, so, and then even Islam, which was born in the Piscean age, another religious group, they split also into the Shia and the Sunnis. So that you'll find this split many times, with this Piscean age and so forth. Very interesting to see that. We had, of course, there was the Dark Ages there when they wanted to become more insular and get away from everything. That was during the Cancer decade. And then we had things really shift with, of course, then Uranus and the big drop, and then starting anew into what we now know as our Aquarian age and all those different things. But then, a little bit later after that, we had the discovery of yet another planet, which again was figured out mathematically, and they then found the planet Neptune. I now go to the second drop. But with that, I think it's it's the third song. So just to get you into the mood of Neptune, okay? We've got the Neptune song. And that's not it. That was a Millennium by Robbie Williams. I've got more music that I can give you. Yeah. Which we can have some music for.
When was
1846.
that's what
Here we go. Neptune.
Back in junior high, I was kinda shy, but the teachers all liked me 'cause I made B's and A's. I didn't ever skip class or even chew gum, but I mostly spent the 8th grade trying to figure out what other planets the people in my class came from.
Yay!
When she was young.
Huh?
It sounds like Poplin when she was young.
Yeah, it sounds like her. No, her name is Emily Cates.
It's a great song.
Great song, isn't it? Yeah, I'm from Neptune. Isn't that great? Yeah. And so this is the second drop in our modern world. We already started with the Aquarian Age, and then here, 1846, Neptune discovered. And I love this drop of water, and then it pops up with the Earth inside of it. And here we are in our little bubble, or our water planet. My goodness, what a time. 1846. And remember that we've got the waves, we've got the crests, we've got the actual time itself, 1846. And watery Neptune is not as clear as Uranus or Pluto that we will see. You don't have like such extreme things, but there's a lot going on, and it's all part of the god of the sea, sometimes undercurrents, energies, feelings, beliefs, like the transcendental movement. Ralph Waldo Emerson, Thoreau, and bringing in some ideas from the East, inspiration, the revivals, the Chautauquas coming in from New York, bringing forth new ideas, new people, new perspectives. Darwin and his evolutionary theory. Again, it's an idea, it's a belief. Is it science? It's Neptunian. It happens over a long period of time. And like magic, there are these changes that happen, and we evolve. You'll find things not so clear, but ultimately brilliant with this planetary energy. Sometimes the belief systems got a little bit too far. We had the false prophecy that happened it was going to be the 22nd of October of 1844. It was the end of the world. Did you know that? Yeah, we missed it. This was called the Great Disappointment, and there was followers of a Christian fanatic called Miller, and so it was a Millerism. And not only did he, but many others, they had their ideas about prophets and dreams and prophecies and things like that. Very Neptunian. It was a great disappointment because, again, it didn't happen. And so then they had to regroup and find out exactly, so what did it mean? Or maybe we shouldn't be paying attention to such things, like the end of the world sorts of things. The Mormons were also coming together under Joseph Smith. And here was, again, another person with dreams, visions, and ideas, belief systems, and then persecution. It was a time of utopian ideals. Lots of different communes. Get away from the system. Have your ideas inspired by someone who was also working during this time. Karl Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto in 1848, but he was already working with Engels during this time here. Could be just a coincidence, but I think it's a very Neptunian thing. There were other things kind of unseen, but that was causing some problems, like the potato blight in Ireland, and then the Great Hunger, and then many Irish, as well as many other refugees from other places were coming here, as well as others. There was fanaticism. Remember, all of this is now talking about beliefs, ideas, feelings, things you can quite grasp, but one idea was manifest destiny. Of course we have the right to take over this land, and there seems to be some people in the way, but we'll push them out because it's our manifest destiny. One has to, again, watch out for all kinds of ideas and beliefs and feelings that can, that fan is a root word of fanatic. We had also Texas, and the Mexican government said, yeah, we don't have enough people here. Yeah, come on over. That was a big mistake. There were seances and spiritualism, fantastic ideas, and P.T. Barnum was doing his thing with his circuses and gatherings and let's collect. And this man here, he is 125 years old. Look at him. And this one over here, he is 8 foot tall. Really? Trust me. All kinds of stuff there. But something also very cool, very magical at that point that we're even using right here in this room today. We have now, again, a chart of Neptune. And here is, we have the ability now with our great our telescopes as well as our cameras and so forth to take pictures of here's Neptune with some of its moons right there. But here again is the discovery of Neptune, again 1846. And I want to have you take a look at something very interesting here. We have, it was right next to each other, Saturn and Neptune, side by side there. And it just happened to be there at that time when it was discovered. But we're going to be seeing whenever those two get together, we have got what's called the communist imprint. And something very big happens in the socialist communist world whenever those two get together. It's very interesting to plot them out in history. In the meantime, the abolition movement was snowballing because this thing called freedom and oppression and exploitation and all of these things, we have to do something about that, which then...
Slavery.
That's right, exactly, which turned into, of course, the Civil War, and then the Emancipation Proclamation and the freedom of the slaves, followed by the Jim Crow laws,
Except in Tennessee and Missouri, do you know they were exempt from the Emancipation Proclamation?
Oh my goodness, how did they do that? Tennessee and Missouri exempt from the Emancipation Proclamation, so did they keep their slaves?
Yeah, and also, all of the first, 8 or 9 presidents had slaves.
Oh yeah, they all had slaves, that's right, yeah, including Thomas Jefferson.
Oh.
That's right. Declaration of Independence. All men are created equal. We also had the Opium Wars in China. Imperialist England was going to make sure that there's going to be opium made and consumed. And we'll fight about it. In the meantime, something else unusual connected with, the microscope, germs and Louis Pasteur. His first successful pasteurization process was in 1864. Florence Nightingale and the Crimean War. Nursing and the growth of hospitals and sanitariums, healing techniques, and this strange idea that you should wash your hands. They fought it. They fought that idea. Amazing, yeah. But hygiene and hypnosis. Hypnosis came into its own at that point. Again, one of those mysterious sorts of things. What's really going on? You can't really see it, but it seems to be happening. Yes, Neptune brought many things.
Would you like to know what happened in the art world?
Oh yeah, please.
The Impressionists, of course.
Yeah.
Right? Does that make sense with Neptune?
It is. And the Impressionists had to deal with this. This is one of the very first photographs. One of the very first photographs, daguerreotype, and the artists were saying, once this started to develop, they say,
we need to do something different.
we can't compete with this, And isn't that fascinating? But again, a very Neptunian thing. And so, again, if you've got Neptune strongly aspected in your chart, and we're going to be plotting them with all of you, we're going to see that, Neptune, inspiration, ideas, vague sorts of things, beliefs, inspiration, a higher vibration of Venus. And so this think about the emancipation and being kind to your fellow man, all of those movements, transcendentalism, and religious ideas, belief systems, and knockings on the other side. Yeah, let's be spiritual and let's think about other things. But at the same time, this is a magical sort of thing that happened. That again, one of those inventions, one of those innovations from this second drop that has really indeed changed our world.